turning is this particular moment in history in which we're trying to move from a completely unsustainable, empire-based model of civilization to something that's sustainable, that supports the imagination of Earth community. So that transition, that huge transition from a completely unsustainable culture to a sustainable one, that's the idea of the Great Turning. Many people have found that having a name for that large cultural, civilizational shift is empowering. So the reason why it's necessary to be an agent of the Great Turning right now is that we're consuming 2.5 times the capacity of the Earth to restore itself. We have the greatest spike in extinction of species for the last 65 million years. We're living in absolutely unprecedented times. The human species has never seen anything like it, and they need to respond to it out of an awareness that we are an organ of the Earth. We are the Earth thinking itself through us, and we're being called to do this great turning because of the dire circumstances in which we find ourselves.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's an incredible question. The answer is yes. We have learned that you are capable of helping a child create the pathway in their brain to create a connection in the visual cues with a baby. So we do exercises, and we do specifically have questions, and we do work particularly with some children that are removed emotionally. So those are actually the ones that we have found some of the greater possibilities and connections with.
I want you to think about holding actions. I want you to think about what is useful and what is successful. those are kids that I've been working with, and there's 190 of them in Seattle right now, 8 to 14 years old, and they come out and they speak because they're going to live longer than you. And when a 10-year-old stands up and says, "Don't build this, don't burn that, I need you to stop driving your car today," how do you argue with that?
So I will challenge all of you to think about ways that you can hang out with people who are very different from yourselves, have different values, as a way to influence them, because that's where I think our biggest job is. We can hang out with our own kind all day long, and we're not going to get very far.
So what I had hoped for from the Great Turning Community Fair as a learning outcome was for each student to begin to realize that they themselves are not just students, but also teachers. I mean, the Great Turning is such a huge thing. It's taking place on such a huge global level, and we need each person to be themselves a center of change. So the idea was, let's have an experience of what it would be like to do a community education program and have each person understand what the elements are and put on something like that to see how much teamwork is involved in it, how each person's skills can be maximized for the good of the whole, and have a successful experience in a community education program. And then realize that each person is capable of doing this very same thing themselves. So if we had 20 people putting on this community fair, we now have 20 people who can do 20 different community fairs.